In my previous video, I promised this.
Slopper Engine's 1-year anniversary is right around the corner, next month even. And what better way to celebrate than getting it feature complete? It's definitely ambitious, but perhaps I can manage creating an editor and an audio system in a month.
And back then, exactly one person said this might be an unrealistic goal. But I beg to differ. I've made an editor before, and that was in more or less a month. Surely then, I should be able to do this in more or less 2 weeks, which is when the anniversary is. So let's just dive right into how it went. On day 1, I immediately got started on serialization. Serialization means taking objects from the language and turning them into a form where they can be stored for later use and recreated. It basically means saving and loading. This is important because in the end, almost the entire game needs to be stored in this format. Things like a level built from separate colliders and renderers, or an enemy built from a pathfinder and an animator. The strategy for the implementation is fairly simple. Using C#'s built-in reflection, we get all valid data from the object and we store it in a big array of bytes and metadata. Day 1 boiled down to me making just a bare minimum infrastructure to get started. An attribute for marking data as preferred not to serialize, and a basic class with empty functions. Well, serialization is fully working now. I think I missed the anniversary by like a week. That's okay. Turns out, when you try to squeeze out a system as fast as possible, you can definitely do it, but it will suck. The system I made a year back turned out to be unusably bad and had nothing I could realistically reuse in it. What I ended up making instead is fairly extensible, it works on everything I've thrown at it so far, and it performs quite well. There are still things missing like developer-readable save formats though, but this will do for now. With serialization done, I can get started on UI. Thinking about it now, I don't actually have much experience making a system for that. Well, UI is mostly implemented. I've got some basic layout, all the buttons you could possibly want, some basic style functionality and easy setup. The UI prioritizes always having a correct layout, independent of the user screen. This is a major gripe I've had when I've been forced to interact with Unity's UI system. Anytime you set up something complicated, your buddy is like, hey, the UI is completely broken and it's because their monitor is 6 pixels wider. But alright, you're probably done with me saying for sure this time, but there's literally nothing in the way of making an editor right now. The UI system is capable, and the saving and loading works at least half of the time. So let's start over. On day 1, I mostly spent time creating the build and planning out how things go technically. This is where I realized this would actually be significantly more complicated than with the previous editor I made. Back then, the editor and the game were one and the same, but I don't find that acceptable for a real editor. Doing it this way added to compile time and made the workflow miserable. Instead, the editor should load the other codebase to create scenes and reload it when the user makes any changes to the code. Even setting up nothing at all took a while though, because C# has like 3 different ways to use existing code, and none of them were working perfectly for me. Day 2 is where the actual development starts. I begin setting up the code for messing with the objects using an inspector with customizable visibility. Contrary to the system Unity has, where all serializable fields are inspectable, in my editor you can inspect properties too, and visibility is only based on whether a member is public or not. I also made this little toolbar on top, but I've only put one barely functional menu on it. On day 3, I created the undo and redo system. This actually took a while because I had to re-implement an entire built-in class. I also set up more code for the hierarchy, but I didn't end up using it yet. Having all this soon to be reutilized code lying around made me feel a little defeated. It's almost a midway point and my editor couldn't actually edit anything. This is also really where it settled in how much stuff I need to get a real editor working. The functionality I had stocked up was far from enough. Day 4 started catastrophically slow. For the entire morning I did not do any work, but then it was dinner time and I had lasagna. And it awakened something in me. I realized I could just lock the fuck in. In the span of only 6 hours, I created a menu for adding objects, a menu for showing all objects in the scene, and I fixed the toolbar's incorrect behavior. If I could keep up this pace, I would have a functional editor by the end of the week. On day 5, I created the inspector. This is the little window into the state of objects, and where you get to mess around with their values. I only implemented reading the values rather than changing them too. This would have to come later. But this is all the work I could get done this day. I'd have to start working much harder once again. I can only hope for a massive sprint in the weekend. On Saturday, I added a little polish to the codebase and the undo and redo shortcuts. This is really not the pace I wanted to take. All I could do is hope tomorrow is better. Sadly though, on Sunday I went to the gym, then I went home and collapsed on the bed. I did not write a single line of code. On Monday, I did try to continue development. I made the scene render, but I decided it would be against the spirit of the challenge to write this off as work I did on Sunday. In the end, no, I could not make an editor in a week, and no, it's not better than Unity's. But, freed from the confines of the challenge, I started working on it more anyway. I cleaned up a lot of the code and added much required documentation. And, slowly but surely, I remember what I was doing this all for. Not reaching arbitrary milestones for more clicks on YouTube.com, but just to have fun. In the future, I don't think I'll be making another video like this. So if you want to see more content like this, you won't be getting it from me, so make sure to unsubscribe and dislike the video and leave the Discord server